Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Hyperfriends. Today again with our friend Jaromir from Dell, and we thought we explain a bit the Dell APEX platform and how it relates to Azure Stack HCI and Arc. I know, as always, Jaromir has prepared an amazing lab for us within his own data center with the millions of servers he owns. So yeah, Romeo, maybe for the few people who don't know you, you can would be nice if you give a short introduction to yourself, and then yeah, let's go for it, I would say.
Okay, first of all, it's not my data center, but it's in a Dell. I do have an access to some bunch of hardware. So thank you for the introduction. My name is Jaromir. I'm based in Czech Republic. I'm a global engineering technologist. Our team is consisted of the professionals who are helping our sales teams and our customers, usually the biggest one customers, but I don't mind talking to any customer. So please, if you have any questions, just ping me, right? And with technical aspects of the Microsoft solutions. And what I do, I also feedback all of this, feedback I collect from the customers, or I just find to our internal product groups in Dell, and also to Microsoft product groups, as I am Microsoft MVP.
Okay, Jaromir. So first, can you help me answer the question what Apex is? So I know it's like in everyone's mouth right now. You need to have Dell Apex.
Oh yeah.
What is it?
So first of all, it's like a collection of 3 different products. We introduced that we want to go multi-cloud. It means that you will just choose your cloud of your choice and then choose the on-prem solution for this cloud, right? So we do have Apex Cloud Platform for Microsoft Azure, for Red Hat OpenShift, and then for the VMware, right? So we have these 3 platforms currently. I'm an expert on this Microsoft Azure cloud platform. It's more or less wrapped 23H2 with some goodies we will talk about. It's a consistent process that came up from the idea, let's have some VxRail experience for the Microsoft customers who want to have Microsoft Azure in their data centers. We more or less cooperated with the Microsoft to create this solution. So we always want to have something extra for our customers. So that's why we developed this Apex Cloud Platform for Microsoft Azure. It's more or less about a consistency. Same hardware is being used across 3 different solutions. We do have our MC nodes, MC like a multi-cloud 660 and 760 nodes. That's either you will choose to use for the VMware solution, Red Hat OpenShift solution, or for Azure Stack HCI for Microsoft Azure.
Yeah, but in the future, I think you can rename it to 2 cloud solution because Broadcom is there and Dell sold VMware, so don't know if we stay with multi-cloud on premises or just stay with 2.
I'm okay with the Microsoft, right? I'm
Me
okay
too,
with
me too. Me too. To just pay my rent.
Oh yeah, that's true. Right. So, and I'm an expert in Azure Stack HCI stuff, and I spend a lot of time, deploying clusters on Hyper-V with failover clustering, and this is the same technology, right? Like everyone already knows that Azure Stack HCI is more or less Windows Server without features that you can consume as an Azure, which is awesome in my humble opinion, right? Because it uses the reliable technology, just improved with the cloud connection.
So maybe one thing we should make clear, because there was a lot of confusion out in the wild or in the community, as we discontinued Hyper-V server, everyone thought that Hyper-V isn't continued. But I think we can make
Hyper-V
clear.
server. Hyper-V server is not Hyper-V, right?
Yeah, okay. It's Hyper-V server is using the technology of Hyper-V, as was some kind of free offering, which is now no longer available with the newest versions of Hyper-V. But Hyper-V is still everywhere. It's used in Azure. It's used on
Windows
Azure Stack HCI, Windows
11.
Server, Windows 11, and also Xbox. No, so
Yes.
as no one really understands it, an Xbox is basically a Hyper-V host. And all of that is used, and all of this goodness, as it comes also to Azure Stack HCI. But
Xbox is using containers, right? Dave Weston has a really nice YouTube video. I mean, it's like 4 or 5 years old, where he's explaining the security of the Xbox, and where he was talking about different kind of containers that are used in the Xbox, which is very interesting. So from here we go into the base security of the operating system, where you have to divide the different VTLs, virtual trust layers, and you divide these VTLs with a Hyper-V tool or with a virtualization, just to create different operating systems, right? And share the content of the memory.
Correct. And we don't want to buy Xboxes right now, so I bought a few Dell MC multi-cloud nodes.
Right.
And I'm a customer. So how does that work? So are they delivered at the validated nodes? Is there some other magic I need to follow with those special offering with those special servers?
So first of all, it's a premier category, new category for Azure Stack HCI of the hardware and software. It comes with the support. It comes with the deployment process that was defined, and it was, I would say, developed with the same team and same mindset as we developed VxRail deployment. So it's consistent from start, right? So when you receive the machines in a factory, you already receive it the way that you will just connect it, and then the deployment team will just run a wizard that will, initiate the deployment. If you compare it to the cloud deployment, with the cloud deployment, you have to by yourself provision the operating system, just make sure that everything, all of the drivers, firmwares, and everything is there. There is some basic in the ISO file, right? But you need to download everything from the OEM. You need to populate it. You need to check it against the baselines. You need to make sure that it's installed to the correct operating system. Yada yada yada, right? And all of this is already done for you, right? And if you need to, you can reinstall it. I do have a presentation. I can just start sharing my screen, and we can just walk it through how it looks like when you will receive your hardware from the factory and what actually happens in the factory. Or in case something goes wrong in the factory, what actually kind of happens on the premises if you need to re-image the nodes, right? So let me just share the screen. So this is a deep dive-ish that I created when I was installing ACP in my or on our data center that we do have for labs, and I did some screenshots. So let's take a look what happens in a factory. This we call day zero experience, something that you will not experience because it was done already in the factory. Right? Or in case you need to re-image the node, this is how it works. So when you reset the node, and then there's a tool called Node Image Management, then you boot these media from the virtual media. So basically you can configure iDRAC to attach media over SMB. If anyone needs, I do have some scripts that will basically do it via Redfish. You configure your iDRAC via Redfish to attach media over the SMB. And then all of the bus cards and capacitor drives are formatted, and it's also validating if the correct firmware is loaded. And then there's some bootstrap operating system loaded to the boot media, right, to the bus cards. These bus cards are, special PCI Express card that you can hot plug, hot remove, and just a smaller, right, because you don't want to take all the big 2.5-inch space for just the operating system, right? You want to have something smaller. So that's why we do have these BOSS cards. And it looks like this, right? So it will boot. So what you can see now is this is a NIM, Node Image Management Tool, that is booted, and where I selected that I want to reset the current node and erase all of the data on the BOSS drives, and also delete all of the data on all of the other storage drives, right? Or capacity drives. And then what it will do, it will apply this base operating system together with the image that will be later deployed using the wizard. So this is what happens in the factory. Any question on this?
No. It's just but if I need to re-image after the factory, I can also have those tools for download or via Dell support, basically.
Yes, so Dell support will do it for you now, just to make sure that everything is done correctly. In the future, probably it will be downloadable by the customers, but not yet, right? Not yet. It's when you will order the Azure Stack HCI APEX platform for Microsoft Azure, you will receive a pro deploy. And this comes with the pro deploy, right? So pro deploy will make sure that everything is correctly applied, installed, and if there is an issue from the factory that should not be, right, you could re-image it, right, using this NIM image that you can mount, reboot the node, boot from the virtual media, and just wipe the node. Make sure it's all in a fresh state.
And after the factory, what happens then? When I receive my servers?
So when you will receive your service, then we call it like a day one experience. And then during this day one experience, when it will be connected and the machines will be booted, it will do some discovery, right? So what will happen is that, first of all, you will be able to access the primary node. So when you will boot the machines, we'll try to find out all of the machines over the network. And on the next slide, I will have you the mechanism, how this is being done. And it will just make sure that it finds all of the machines on the network over the VLAN 3939, as I said on the next slide, you will see it. And it will just elect the primary node and then select the secondary nodes, right? And then you will connect to this primary node over this IP address 192.168.10.200 with the deployment wizard. And then you just need to make sure that you are in the same subnet, right? So you will just connect another machine into the same subnet or same VLAN and just configure the IP address manually, so you are able to reach out to this IP address, or you can just log into one of the servers and just modify the network on the primary node and the secondary nodes manually. Something you don't want to do, but it's possible. Once you will just there is a mechanism. When you will just provision the server OS, click here. We'll just try to find another service. As you can see, there is one server that is elected as a primary node, the one with the home icon. And to be able to find these servers, it needs to do some IPv6 discovery, as I mentioned, on VLAN 3939. And you need to just make sure that there's IPv6 snooping enabled, and then this no multicast snooping flat restrict configured, right? We do have a KB article for this. So basically, we'll automatically find other nodes. And when you will just click through all of the basic settings, like where the APEX Cloud Platform Manager should be, on what IP address, what are network settings, and all of this configuration, you will just make sure that the configuration is correct on the nodes, and it will provision the server operating system, right? Step 2, right? So this is something that we will do with the customer. Just make sure that these are the nodes, and then just select the IP address for the APEX Cloud Platform Manager. It will be a virtual machine. It will have an IP address, so you will provide it here. You will provide IP addresses for all of the nodes. So one node should have like IP address 10.something.something.1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. So you will configure everything here. So you don't have to mess up with, for example, if you do cloud deployment, you have to go into each node, configure VLAN, configure IP address, make sure that everything is, no, this is done already for you, right? So it's simplifying the deployment process of the operating system and then preparing it to be able to deploy it with a step 2, right? So this is more or less like installing Azure Stack HCI. That's what will happen.
Yeah, and is that using exclusively the iDRAC interfaces, or is there more magic with the components behind?
So iDRAC is being used, and this stage where you discover the service, then iDRAC, you will validate if the firmware and drivers are not drivers, but if firmware is up to date, so this firmware validation is happening over the USB virtual interface that is exposed to the operating system. So when you are in the iDRAC, you can configure to have this USB interface that will be exposed in the operating system, and this way you can communicate to the iDRAC from the operating system or to the operating system. So this is what is also being used, right? But right now, how you are connecting to the IP address from your, let's say, a management node, right? So you are not even going to each node like virtual session or virtual desktop over the iDRAC or virtual connect, as we call it. So you just do everything from the management node while connecting to the IP address and just click next.
Okay.
Even if the machines do not have any IP address, the rest of the machines just do have some IPv6 IP address, and then we just next install. It assumes that you don't have any DHCP there. You are somewhere in the data center, and then you just have an access to some other node that is in the same VLAN. So you can communicate to the solution somehow.
Okay, understood. So how do we proceed then? So what's the next steps?
So then the next step is, again, day one experience, and then you will just deploy the cluster configuration. So if you know how the cloud deployment works, then this is what you specify in the cloud deployment. What you will do is that you already have your MC nodes, you already have your Azure Stack HCI operating system where the Hyper-V is running, and it's running the Cloud Platform Manager virtual machine with the IP address that you specified during here as a APEX Cloud Platform Manager. You specify in the previous steps the IP address, and it's injected into this virtual machine that is running, and then you will connect to it again with the IP address, and then continue with the process of configuring the operating system, providing the same information as you would provide during the cloud deployment, and basically deploying the cluster itself.
Is there any limitation to the operating system right now? So can you also deploy 23H2, for example, or is it limited to 22H2?
So we are just talking about 23H2.
Okay. And what we basically have then is a virtual machine running unclustered for now, doing the whole deployment, and then afterwards being clustered, or
right. This is just a simple on one of the nodes, on the primary node. You have a Hyper-V. I mean, there's on every node there's Hyper-V machine, just copy it, extract it, but only on one node it's running. And that's where you are connected. It's orchestrated the way that you will already have an IP address and in this Cloud Platform Manager, so you can connect to it. So you could specify some, IP address that will be there forever. I mean, for good and not forever. You can just change it, right? But when you will be planning IP ranges, it will be in the same range as your nodes, for example, or as your resource bridge.
Okay, understood.
Right.
So now I have my Cloud Platform Manager.
Right.
And I start to configure my clusters. So what
exactly? So what happened is that when you kept open the same interface as we had before, it just redirected you into this 10.0.0.100, in this case, the IP address that I configured in the wizard, right? And it will give you an information that the operating system provisioning finished, and then you can just simply deploy the cluster configuration. And this is the process that I mentioned, where you will specify all of the details about your cluster, how you want to deploy it, which organization it will stay in, what is your domain join account, and so on.
From an operating system deployment standpoint, is it also during the operating system deployment updating firmware drivers operating system, or is it taken as is and we'll do that during the cluster deployment?
So it is, I think, deploying already. That's a good question, because either it will do it as part of the cluster deployment, and it just, because I don't know when the script is being run. I didn't notice it, but I think there has to be some drivers just to make sure that the network configuration will be there and you will be able to connect to the nodes. But I'm pretty sure that deployment process is applying solution builder extension, and then there's a solution builder extension that is being applied. So it might also happen that during the deployment process, we will just use the native supplemental package, the technology that was introduced by Microsoft to be able to deploy 23H2 Azure Stack HCI. And there is one step to deploy solution builder extension, and there is a solution builder extension in this case, so it will apply SBE and it will apply the drivers and firmwares again. So if it was not done in the step before, it will be done during the cluster deployment.
Okay.
So there's one more step that is being done by the deployment engineers. The ACP manager needs to authenticate users that will log in into the ACP. The way it's being done, it's using LDAP, and in this case, LDAP-S. So you need to prepare an account that will communicate from the ACP to the on-premises Active Directory. And you, of course, need to trust the certificate because it will use the LDAP-S. So there's a step that you need to do. And then in this step, you upload with a PowerShell again a certificate to the ACP manager, right? So it's something that the redeploy services will do for the customer.
Okay, but with that, if it's done by the service engineer, but with the support of the customer, as you said, it looks like it needs to be in the Active Directory, and you need to get some things from the customer itself.
So yeah, with the customer, the deployment engineer, they will collect sets of the pre-checks or prerequisites that needs to be done before you will even run this deployment. And one of the prerequisites is just to prepare the certificate that can be uploaded into the ACP manager. And I created a bunch of scripts that will make it easier for the engineers. So to identify the root, root certificate, for example, if the customer has certification authority. If not, then the process to deploy certification authority and then assign or deploy the certificate to the DC and import it into the LDAP. Because by default, if you deploy the DC, there is no certificate for LDAP-S. You have to enable it, right? But we're going to assume that the customers already have root CA and they already have LDAP-S. If not, that's something that our engineers are able to do.
Okay, understood. What happens next?
Okay, if you click on deploy cluster configuration, it will just run another wizard. And then again, you can provide this a configuration file, or you can just do step-by-step use input. The upload configuration file. There's a similar. It's not the same. It's similar configuration file as an ARM template, or when you were deploying it with a supplemental package before, there was also possibility to upload a configuration file or use the configuration file. This is slightly different. It has some extra information. Right, so you will most likely, on the first time, you will just select the step-by-step user input. Then, the privacy statement that, you agree with something. Then you will select the nodes. As you can notice now, here are the IP addresses already, right? So the servers already have IP address because I already, in a step before, when the operating system was applied, I specified what the IP addresses should be, right? So in this case, I already specified 101, 102, 103, and 104 IP addresses.
Okay.
Then you will just, then you will just decide if you want to do step-by-step or upload configuration file. We already saw this screenshot. If it's in the Europe or outside of Europe, in this case, this cluster was in the US. So I decided to even send the telemetry into the Azure. Then you specify the Azure account. The deployment is done using service principal. So in this case, the service principal is used. If you do cloud deployment, then you authenticate as a user who is deploying it, right? In this case, there's a service principal created for this. You will specify your subscription ID, a resource group that you have to pre-create in Azure, and then and then that's it, right? In this step for the Azure account. For the storage, you will choose if you want to create infrastructure and the workload volumes or just infrastructure volumes. Again, this is one-to-one what you can see in a cloud deployment, right? It will also ask you if you want to create volumes or not. And then a switch topology. Since I do have 4 nodes in this case, the switchless pattern is grayed out, right? There's only switched pattern.
Is it looking for a number of nodes or the available NIC?
Yes.
Because as we both know, if we add more NIC network cards to their server, we could also do a daisy chain of, I think.
Oh yeah.
Things we tested up to 5 servers.
But,
daisy chained.
But 2311, that is being deployed by this one. 2311 doesn't support more than 2 nodes, switchless. 2402 supports 3 nodes, right? If you deploy it via ARM. But it's limited, right? And the reason is that if you have more connections, you need to have more subnets. Yeah. And if you deploy a network intent,
it becomes rather complex in this case. But technically, it would be possible.
Right.
But no one does it from management perspective, and doesn't make sense. At some point, the amount of NICs you would require is the same like you would need to invest into a switch, basically.
Well, it's not even about that, right? But the network ATC itself doesn't support more than 3 nodes.
No.
Actually, 2 nodes in 2311, 3 nodes with 2402. However, with 3 nodes, you need to deploy it with a ARM template with a cloud deployment. And the reason is because of the IP addresses. If you have just 2 nodes, it's just one subnet that you have to have, or even 2 subnets because there are just 2 connections, right? But with the 3 nodes, you have to have subnet for each interconnect, right? And then network ATC cannot detect which one is going to which node, right? So if the first connection is to between first node and second node, and then second connection is second node to third node, and then just isolate it to different subnets. That's something that network ATC cannot do probably right now.
Okay. Then I see in a screenshot afterwards we configured a witness. So
right. In this case, the witness was optional with the 4 nodes, but we know that 4 nodes should have witness. So this is something that I submitted as a bug, but I think this was the Microsoft thing that they were not deploying witness for 4 nodes. It was fixed, I think, with 2402. We can double check it, right? But just make sure that you always deploy Cloud Witness. It doesn't hurt you.
It's just not used if you have an uneven number of nodes. So
exactly. I mean, if you have even if you have like 4 nodes, and if 2 nodes go down, then you will stay up if you have a witness, right? On the only case where it doesn't make sense is 3 nodes. With 3 nodes, you do not need witness at all. With 5, 6, 7 nodes, it always kind of makes sense to have one, right? It will help you in case something goes wrong. It doesn't cost you anything. Then the global settings, so cluster name, the resource name, the DNS name, and this is related to the objects that are being created in Active Directory, right?
So from a prerequisite perspective, so what, for example, the environmental checker is checking that CRED SSP is enabled, etc. Is there something in Dell APEX 2 which is similar to that?
Exactly. So when I will finish the guide, where you will just fill everything here, like what is your LDAP server, Active Directory organization unit, naming prefix, cloud management account name, and everything. And even you are also specifying here the Windows Admin Center gateway, because then the Windows Admin Center will have an extra extension for APEX Cloud Platform, and we will take a look at it, right? How it looks like. So after all of this is being filled together with the new username and passwords to the ACP manager, in this case root account, service account, and then remote service account, then you will also configure a local administrator passwords on each of the nodes. This is something extra. This is something you don't do or do. No, you just specify what is actually there as a local admin password. But in this case, you are specifying what should be the password, right? As a end result. And then there's still so many steps, right? Okay, you specify the local admin password. You also specify the rec name and then I think it's a location of the rec or location in the rec. There's one more column. You also specify if you want to have 1 or 2 intents. I forgot to take a screenshot. There was another screenshot where I was able to specify the VLANs for the subnets. In this case, I specified 2 intents, so 1 for the compute and management for the OCP NICs, and 1 for the storage for the PCI Express NICs, right?
So one thing we can maybe also mention here is that is not supported to mix PCI and OCP NICs because they're differently connected, maybe have a different latency to the CPU. So
not only the connected, right? But if you have network ATC, it's checking, and I forgot the property name of the NIC, right? It's a component ID. Yeah, it's checking component ID.
It's checking component ID, and what you can do is, for example, if you have a 4-port OCP, you can build a switch on the 4-port OCP, or you can also have two-port PCI cards with the same chipset, same drivers. Then you can combine a vSwitch on those cards, but you can never, and it's not supported, for example, to build a vSwitch here between OCP and PCI cards. Even if they're from the same vendor, even if they're using the same chipset, they will not be supported in a set switch on top. So as we had that discussion a lot in the past, and it looks like customers would favor that option, but as you said, there are different components seen by the not only by the operating system, but also from a motherboard layout, from a CPU connectivity. There are different components with different behavior. And if we're talking about such low latency technology, even those minimal differences in behavior could impact overall performance and stability from the systems. That's why you should never mix up PCI and OCP cards.
Yeah, just order the 2 PCI cards, right?
Yeah.
Because if you want to have 4 NICs in one intent, just skip the OCP. Just skip OCP.
Leave them for something else. Management.
Yeah, just
backup,
just use
something like that.
Exactly. So these are the intents, and then you will specify the infrastructure network. So start and end IP address. 6 IP addresses, the same thing as you do with a cloud deployment, and then you will just simply validate the configuration. And this is where it's interesting, right? Because it's validating quite a lot of things. So it's just making sure everything is fine, including the firmware and BIOS settings, right? In my case, I didn't. What I did is that I do have in my lab servers that were converted from the PowerEdge servers, right? So my BIOS settings were not correct, and I found it here that it's not correct, and I had to go into the BIOS and modify it just to, for example, enable something in the TPM, some kind of secure boot setting. Well, secure boot itself was enabled, but something for the secure boot was not. It was like 3 different settings that I didn't have enabled. So I just make sure that everything is the way it should be. Right? And then I was able to download the configuration that I created to be able to load it next time, for example, when I want to, if I would, want to run the wizard without specifying all of these answers, I would be able just to provide this JSON file and then simply deploy the configuration. It will take around 3 hours.
And so the JSON file can then also be modified to use other IP addresses and so on. So if I want to deploy a different cluster in my data center with the same amount of nodes and so on.
It's the same thing as I do have this lab where I do have it. This is my configuration JSON that was created. I'm not sure if this will be, too small, but there is like everything about my cluster. It's JSON that looks absolutely similar to what you have for the cloud deployment, or it's probably not now in the cloud deployment, but you can see here there's like a storage net switch topology, in this case switched, and there's an intent one, and then there's a, what are the storage networks. This is different. This is for the MC 420. This one is for 760. Let me just go here as a management intent with the compute, and there is the storage intent, right? So as you can see, everything is here. Storage networks, infrastructure network, AD domain, and everything. Except the passwords, right? The passwords are not here. You have to specify the passwords. In theory, you could fill it, but no, not sure.
You shouldn't do from a security perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you more or less will run this wizard again with repopulated values when you will load this file.
And now, as we have our cluster deployed, how does it differentiate from the cloud deployment and the Apex platform versus how you would maybe consume the service in Arc?
Perfect. So that's a really good question. So this is how it will kind of finish. When it will finish, then you'll be able just to click on the launch Windows Admin Center, and then you will have your Windows Admin Center with pre-populated shared MC nodes in this case, right? So you are able to go just to failover clusters and be able to communicate. Let's take a look in the infrastructure itself. So we do have this Cloud Platform Manager virtual machine that can communicate via Redfish to the nodes via this ISB USB virtual NIC. And then it's able to orchestrate updates, right, to the infrastructure. Why we are doing the updates? Let me just show you, right? Because when you do updates, for example, it will just make sure that everything is fine, right? Like both power supplies are connected, right? No pending indirect jobs on the hosts, or, you can see it here, right? It's just doing some other pre-checks, right? And you are not able to do these pre-checks when you do, for example, now cloud deployment of the updates. If you use Update Center, right? It will not do this simply. So we are just making sure all of these pre-checks are done. And we are probably waiting for you, Microsoft, to just make sure that we can do it somehow from the Azure Update Manager. But until then, we are just making sure everything is green before we will deploy updates, just to not cause any downtime, right? And then we will just simply kick off the updates deployment. Once you will click on Update Now, you will start the deployment process to deploy updates. And let me just connect to my environment. I do have here multiple environments. This is my host where I host MS Lab environments. And we do have one production environment where we do have MC760. And I do have another dev environment where I do have MC 4520, right? So as you can see, I'm now in the Windows Admin Center, or you can just use a failover cluster manager. I do have 3 clusters in this environment, right? I do have 2 AX clusters deployed with a cloud deployment. And then I have MC cluster 02 that was deployed using this deployment you just saw, using the Apex Cloud Platform Manager. And in the dashboard, you can see, if there is any issue. I can see there's one critical, probably because I'm just running updates, right? Then I can see what is happening on my nodes. Okay, nodes are healthy. I can view the state of the nodes. I can see how it looks like from the front view, and how it looks like from the storage view. I can take a look at how the disks are. And because this is not yet released, it was just announced that we will have this MC 4520, the small branch office nodes, but they are not yet offered to the customers. That's probably why we don't have fancy photos in here, right? That we do have just this drawing diagram about how many disks I do have and that these disks are healthy. So you can see nice overview of the node and everything is healthy. You can even see the compliance, right? If the system is compliant against the uh, required components, right? So if firmware is up to date, right? If this node has drivers on, I don't know, Intel card, right? So this compliance report is also available. Something that you don't have if you just have the base experience with the portal only, right? If I want to see if my cluster is compliant from Azure Portal, it's not possible. So you have to go here, and we'll just make sure the ACP will make sure that it's compliant. You can see alerts. In this case, there's an alert that there are disks that are not in the storage, probably because the node is just being updated. Where's my inventory? Okay, let's see. Storage updates, and in this case, there's another patch update that I can deploy. And then there is some security, so I can lock the iDRACs, and I can also check if the security core is enabled, but this one is already now in Azure Portal. You can check if the secure core is enabled and activated on each node. Let's see how it will populate. Right. All is good. Right, and it's even more information about the node than what you have in Azure Portal, right? If I would go into the Azure Portal, I would go into the, still in the progress, is it? Updates are available now, okay. Let's go into the Azure Arc, into the Azure Stack HCI, into one of the clusters. This one is MC02. Then you have some just basic information, for example, for the security defaults in here, right? And here you see more information about the settings itself. And then that support, how you connect to the support. This cluster is connected to support, and then it sends a Cloud IQ telemetry. So I would be able to connect to the Cloud IQ if I would have an access. I still need to apply for it because this is shared account for support. And then you can, I think, also create a service request right away from here if you have an issue.
Is it also possible, as we talk about primary solution here, to use the Dell proactive maintenance, so that let's say the system itself sit on-prem, sends an email to the customer and says, hey, to Dell support and says, hey, I have an issue. Please call home and tell my administrator about it.
This is a Cloud IQ feature. I'm not now 100% sure because I didn't have an opportunity to play with the Cloud IQ yet because I didn't have an access from the server. And then usually I don't learn anything from the mockups or screenshots, so I need to kind of experience it by myself to be able to talk about it. So unfortunately, I'm not able to answer this question.
Maybe someone from Dell watching that one can comment below.
Under the video, yes.
Under the video.
So so you have this more or less a similar view as you do have when you open probably even the same view as you open it, the list of the disks in Windows Admin Center itself, right? So it's maybe the same thing as it disk slots and then type and model and serial number. It's maybe the same. What is different is that you can you have a replace process in here, so you can just say I want to replace this disk, and it will just run the system validation. We'll do retirement for the disks, and this workflow is also new. And I think there's also, if it's not yet enabled, I think it will be enabled where you can add nodes, right? So in case you want to have 3 nodes, cluster, you will be able to, and you are able to add more service from here, right? Something probably is planned also in Azure, but I didn't see it there yet. I know it's possible from the PowerShell that you can go into the PowerShell and just say, I want to add a node.
It's not in the portal yet while capturing.
Right.
So
you can do this from the ACP manager. So we are just trying to make sure that we are always ahead of what customers need and are always ahead in terms of what other OEMs are offering. So we just are trying to be the best, to have the best solution. So
And-
this is the ACP manager.
And how does it look like for when I have the ACP nodes in the Azure port? Do they look like regular
That's really
servers?
really good question. So if I'll navigate into the infrastructure here, right, in Azure Stack HCI, it's absolutely the same thing, right? You cannot see the difference between the cloud deployed server and then Apex Cloud Platform deployed server. Okay, you can see there's one difference, right? If you go into the Apex Cloud deployed Apex Cloud Platform deployed server, then you don't see any deployments in here, which kind of makes sense because there was no cloud deployment in here, right? If you go into the cloud deployed server, you can see deployments here. And there's also another thing, right? I would probably not enable Windows Defender application control without a solution builder extension that will populate WDAC policies, right? So here are only base policies, and I'm not enforcing it, right? The same thing for the disks, right? I don't want to enable OS volume until I will have solution builder extension that will suspend the volume when it will install the BIOS updates, because otherwise you will lock yourself out. And that's something that you have enabled already on MC nodes, right? Because it was deployed with Apex Cloud Platform. There is extra WDAC policy, and then all of the volumes are encrypted. So if I'll go into the data protections, you can see my volumes are encrypted. If I go to WDAC, you will be able to see that there's Apex Cloud Platform policy. And then, of course, the security defaults are all compliant. My AX nodes are not, because in this case, this is like older generation, AX 6515, and it doesn't support, I think, System Guard or boot DMA protection, if I'll navigate there. From the updates perspective, yeah, this one is up to date. You can deploy updates from here, but it will not do any pre-checks. So if I'll go here in the MC, I can do one-time update, and I can just click next, like this, and it will start installing it. But probably what I should have done is to install it from here, where I would be able to orchestrate it too, and also check some other pre-checks. But it's more or less up to you how you will update it.
Okay, but what's their preferred way? I think it's then using the
ACP.
ACP. Okay.
It's more pre-checks, right? And that's something that we validated. This Azure Update Manager is still the preview, or is it? Or is not? I don't see the preview anymore. Oh, I don't see preview anymore. So maybe it's already GA.
It's Jade.
Okay.
And will cost some extra in a few minutes. So
Right. So, and there's solution version, services version, platform version, SB version, right? The platform version is update. Is it if it's like a cumulative update from yada yada, like this one is from the October, November timeframe? Is it the platform is the CU? Is it? Solution version is and services version is Microsoft services, and then solution probably also, right, like the resource bridge and all of the components.
Correct.
Probably. And this is what OEM version is. In this case, this is version 2401.
And there's no, let's say, if I deploy through the Apex platform, I can still use resource bridge. I can still use Kubernetes. So there's no
Let me just
issue
go there,
with
right?
it.
So you can create Kubernetes cluster the same way as you can do for normal cloud deployed machine, because this is 23H2, you have the resource bridges. As you can see, there's a resource bridge for both MC clusters running. I think just the service principal name is different. Oh, it's the same. So there's the service principal for MC class 01 and MC class 02. And yeah, I think it's the same. It's the same. It's just 23H2 and fully supported, fully blown with all of the security features, with WDuck and everything. Well, there's some error. It's interesting. Can you please tell me what error is this? Sometimes it's like, oh, there's a lost heartbeat. Okay, good. This is new. It was not there.
Yeah. That's maybe why the one of the nodes rebooted during the update. So it could happen.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
And the good thing is, alert condition, it's fixed.
Yeah, that's good. It's fired. It's fired, not fixed. It's fired.
So it
probably
was
small.
as well.
Yeah. But this is new, right?
Yeah, that's there. I think we already noticed by preparing for the capture that there were some changes tonight. So
not tonight. It was tonight in the Redmond time, right? Because when I was checking it in the morning, it was not there yet. So we actually captured the switch to the new experience, where you can see this overview page and also all clusters preview, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So right on time, my friend.
Right on time.
And that brings us right on time for our today's capture. I think there will be some more questions, hopefully in the comments or on the posting on LinkedIn. But I think that was a great overview about the additional benefits of the APEX platform, giving some understanding what it brings on top of what the Microsoft Cloud deployment and Arc can deliver here. I think you're open for more discussions on that, as I know you.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you already said, you need to have these MC nodes, so there's no option to, let's say, try it with the older integrated nodes.
ICP experience, unfortunately not. However, if you want to just try 23H2, you can always use the Dell GEOS GitHub. It's a GitHub that I'm updating, and if you can just simply go or just type into the browser Dell GEOS GitHub, and then hopefully it will be the first thing, Dell GEOS GitHub, and here we have hands-on labs. And then, as you can see, there are multiple app guides on how to deploy MS Lab, how to even deploy physical service with MS Lab, how to do network configuration. And then I recently, even updated how to play with Windows Server 2025 inside the preview, right? Yeah. I even do have some walkthrough here. But there's like how to cloud deploy Azure Stack HCI version 23H2. I'm just updating it, right? So this one is for 23.11 and it already changed. So I'm just in middle of the updating the cluster, the lab, because it's no longer creating all of these groups. It's just creating one deployment user and that's it, right?
Yeah.
So it's everything is being changed. It's now it's being changed as we speak, right?
Perfect. Then I would say let's close our capture for today. Thank you so much for being with me, Jaromir, today and giving that view on the Dell solutions. Oh yeah, for others, subscribe to the channel. If you have questions, use the comments and feel free to ask for more content.
Perfect.
Jaromir, thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
Perfect. You too.